Alright guys, yeah, apologies for this. Just come off essentially a 4-day bender because my family were here, or a few members anyway, spending the weekend. They rented a little apartment in the city, and yeah, a lot of high quality German lager was consumed, let's just put it that way. Yeah, I've not had a session like that for quite a while, and I don't really see myself having another session like that for a good while now. But yeah, it was a great time, and yeah, we drank a lot of really good beers, and I introduced them to some of my favourite lagers, especially the Augustiner Helles or the Paulaner Munich Hell. Two of my favourite beers, and you'll know this if you've been to Europe for like a weekend, or for, you know, a drinking holiday, that sort of thing. You'll just be drinking these beers, they'll be going down a treat, and then all of a sudden they'll just hit you and you will be rendered useless, basically. So yeah, I've basically just been living with a hangover. There was lots of meat consumed, and hair of the dog was, you know, the medicine of the weekend. So yeah, that's why I've not really done too much on YouTube these past 4 or 5 days, and that's why I look and probably sound like shit right now. So yeah, just ignore that. And yeah, so I thought I'd do a beer of a really low ABV beer, because it's the perfect, you know, come down, and it's already in the glass. So this is take 2 of the video, and the funny thing is, I had 4 bottles of this, and of course I had 1 left to do a review of, so I hate it when, you know, videos like this happen. When you've had the stock, you've enjoyed those beers, so you've got a rough, you know, idea of what you want to say, and then when it comes to the actual review of the beer, you completely mess it up, and you have to just do it, you know, shooting again and not giving a pour, that sort of thing. But that's not, you know, really important. At the end of the day, it's all about, you know, the information that I can hopefully put across about this beer. So the beer in question is from Spital, and it's part of their Manufaktor line, and I think it's their newest beer that they've released. I think they actually debuted it at the Craft Beer Festival earlier this year, which just found out that over 3 days, the Craft Beer Festival had 18,000 visitors. And considering that this is only the 2nd festival in the city, and we're not really in a big city at all, that is, you know, quite an astonishing feat. And especially when you can take consideration, if I've got me, you know, information right, it's the biggest turnout to a craft beer festival in Germany ever. And yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff. To be part of this scene, even though it's in a really, you know, subjective part, I'm not actually involved in, you know, the brewing or in the shops and that sort of thing. To be part of this and to getting to know these exciting brewers and trying beers from these new upcoming breweries, because the scene is still relatively young here in Germany. To be part of that is fantastic, and not just because I get, you know, sometimes beer sent to me to review, and this is one of them. And yeah, this is the Summer Ale, which is a 2.8 ABV session pale ale. And yeah, I got an email from the press lady, Isabel, who I've been talking to, you know, for a few months now, since I, you know, met Anton, the head brewer, at Beretta's Spital Manufaktor Indian Pale Ale event, and I've, you know, tried a lot of the Manufaktor beers which have been kindly given to me, which I genuinely appreciate that. So I want to say a big thank you to, of course, Isabel for letting this happen, for making this happen, for giving me this opportunity, and also, of course, to the guys at Spital as well for brewing these high quality beers. And I've said this time and time again, even if, and this, you know, goes back to my film reviews, just because maybe some companies might send you a product, I'm not gonna just blindly say, oh, this is one of the best beers I've tried ever, because that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the consumer, it doesn't help the brewer, because you can't give constructive feedback to some of their beers, and it just makes you look like a dishonest prick. And yeah, so I can tell you now that this hasn't been one of my favourite beers from the Spital Manufaktor line. But I could definitely see where this beer works in terms of like context, which I'll get into, of course. But first, the beer in a glass. It's a nice, light golden, orangey, marmalade-y, ever so slight hint of amber. Well, it's actually a lot more golden than that, to be honest. But it's still got those orangey hues. Not clear at all. I think that's a combination of obviously like the cooling haze, because it's not really been out of the fridge for that long prior to pouring, even though it's been stood for a good 10-15 minutes already in the glass. But yeah, it's got a nice hop haze to it as well. And it's a pretty looking pale ale. And the head, well, I poured it awkwardly with about 3 fingers worth of, I'd say, white fluffy head, which dissipated quite quickly. So on the aroma, orange in there, those typical, almost like tropical pale ale aromas. But I'm also, I don't know where I'm getting this from, but I'm getting like maybe some root vegetable sort of smells. More specifically, maybe something like an asparagus. It's asparagus season here in Germany, so I never used to like asparagus, but been having it quite a lot. And the best way I like it is to get your little piece of asparagus and wrap streaky bacon around them, put them in the oven for a little bit, have them with a fried egg. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I'm getting like some earthy root vegetable aromas in there. Big smell of honey there. Yeah, a notable smell of honey actually. And maybe some orange in there, like the little orange pieces that are sometimes candied. But yeah, it's a nice beer. The one thing I will say, and it is understandable because it's essentially a session beer, it's very subtle on the aroma. And I've found that with some of the session craft beers that I've tried over the past year or so, a lot of them don't really have much going on, and they almost taste like, like grapefruit soapy water, that sort of thing. But this, that honey, I really can't get rid of that honey smell now, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Maybe caramelized asparagus? I don't know. It's a nice subtle aroma, and nothing is, taken away from any other aspects. It's all really nicely balanced. Anyway, the most important thing is, how does it taste? So let's have a go. Cheers. The first thing you'll notice, the body, it sort of reminds me of when you've got like a fizzy mineral water and you've been drinking it for a bit, and it's still got that carbonation there, but it's not as fizzy or carbonated, and it's, I don't want to say watery, but yeah, the carbonation has died down a lot. But it's not unpleasant, it's not too watery. It's what I've come to expect with session pale ales, session IPAs in general, actually. But on the flavour, not really picking up that sweetness I was getting from the honey. I am getting some slight earthy flavours in there, harkening back to root vegetables like asparagus, but not as potent. Maybe some orange in there as well. A little bit of lemon, not too much. It's not as hoppy on the flavour in general either. And going back to when I was saying before that I could see where this is going to work better. It's not really going to work for someone from the UK or America who is used to craft beer. But for the German audience, and especially in a small city like this, who, let's face it, not a lot of people have tried craft beers. And they don't want to be overwhelmed with these flavors that they're not used to. They don't want to have hop explosion. They don't want it to be too bitter. They don't want they don't want to try like what's popular now, like a sour beer or a really strong Russian imperial style stout. But they want to try a craft beer. This is going to work perfectly for that person because it's got enough there to show you what craft beer is about, but it's not going to overwhelm you with aspects of craft beer. But I can safely say that a lot of people who have been drinking craft beer for a long time, when they drink this, they will say that it is really quite dull. I don't think so. It's not the most flavoursome beer that I've tried. It's definitely not my favourite of the Spital Manufaktor beers, but just coming off a 4-day bender, this is the perfect antidote. This is the perfect just kick back and relax pale ale, session pale ale. It's really humid outside. It was really overly hot, and we're not even in June or July yet. And just to kick back with mates, just to kick back for a barbecue or a picnic or in a beer garden, that sort of thing, it's perfect for that. If you don't really want to have like a Radler or a lower ABV version of, like a light, sort of like Paulaner's light Hellers, the lighter version of the Munich Hellers, and you want some flavour in there, then it's going to work in that regard. But I don't know, for my own personal tastes, it could have a bit more character to it. It could have a bit more of a body, but again, that could be completely disregarding the style in general, which it's a session beer. So there's really 9 times out of 10 you're not going to get that oomph from a session IPA or a session pale ale. It's like it says on the label, it's a summer ale. It's a perfect summer beer. And I think it's going to work much better for the German audience than it is for someone from the UK or the US or one of the many other countries that have a really, substantial craft beer brewing scene. But it's a very good attempt. I can see what they were doing with it, so I can't hold too much against it. Would I go out my way to try it again? If it was on tap at a beer garden, or if I went to the Dult again, and I just wanted, just something casual, something low ABV that's not going to get me too hyped up, not going to get me too messy, then I probably would. But I would probably actually go more with either the regular pale ale or the Indian pale ale. But in context, it's a good beer, it's a good attempt, and out of 10, I can safely give it a 7 out of 10. Not my favourite by any stretch, but definitely I'd say it's a lot better than some of the other session pale ales and IPAs that I've tried here from the German craft brewing scene. And yeah, great beer for people who aren't really into craft beer at the end of the day, or if you just want to kick back. I've repeated myself so many times in that, so 7 out of 10. If you want to find out more about Spital and check out some of my other Spital related reviews, I'll put those links down below. Subscribe if you haven't done so already for more beer reviews. Check me out on Instagram as well. What are some of your favourite session pale ales or IPAs that I should try and check out in the future? And yeah, once again, a massive thank you to Isabel and everyone else at Spital for giving me the opportunity to try this beer. And I've got 2 more beers that they kindly gave to me, which I will be reviewing over the next few days. So thank you guys for watching, and I shall hopefully see you in my next beer review. Prost.